Tower from Rotodyne, take off clearance, please. Rotodyne from tower, you're clear to go. Roger, Rotodyne taking off now.
Right, our paint has dried, and you might be able to just see in the light that I have put a gloss varnish down ready for the decals, not on all the surfaces, just where the decals are going. My preferred decal varnish is Humbrol clear gloss varnish. It's very, very thin. You can use it straight from the bottle on your airbrush, or you can brush it on straight from the bottle. So that's what I've used for this. It'll be sufficient for putting our decals on, and then we can over the top clear coat as we see fit. Right then, time to put the decals on. We have already put a couple on inside the cockpit, so we know that we're not going to have any significant issues with these, or at least I'm hoping that we won't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them all out first. Some of them are the same on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which one you use. Others are a bit more obvious because that goes at the front there. I'm going to carefully try and cut away the excess decal film where I can. Other bits of it we can cut out once the decals dry around the windows, for example. Now this particular one here, we have quite a bit of decal film that is giving us the correct spacing between the two words Fairey and Rotodyne. So I want to actually cut that away, and to make sure that I still get the correct spacing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little piece of masking tape to the same length. So what we'll do is we'll start it at the end of the Y there and cut it at the start of the R. So I know that piece of masking tape is the exact space, and we can use that for helping place our decal. And that just makes things a lot easier than trying to get the same spacing on both sides by eye. So we'll put that to one side and keep that for when we're ready. So that goes along the bottom of the fuselage. Okay, so I'm going to cut these up and then we'll have a look at getting them stuck on. Right, all my decals are cut out and I've put the film off where I can. I'm going to start with the tower here that leads up to the rotor. And if you look carefully at the pattern of the rivets, you can make out a sort of a little panel door here, and the word Rotodyne needs to start and end, depending on which side you're on, in the top corner of that door and head backwards, and then we can put the Fairey logo directly above it. So the Rotodyne decal is the first one to go in, and get the Fairey one going as well. The most tricky ones are going to be the ones down the middle, because we've got to join them up and I've got to feed it through the post here. So yeah, but it will cover up our painting join nicely and should really bring this to life, hopefully. Sometimes take a bit longer to soak off these older decals, paper's gone dry and what have you. Okay, taking a bit longer than normal, but we have now got our decal moving. Now what I'm doing is I'm just dropping it down so that the decal film is below the rivet line, because if it's on the rivet line you'll end up with the edge of the decal film all sort of sticking up. Okay, that's the first decal on. So I usually have 2 on the go in the soak, but I'm doing 3 just because it's taking that long for them to soak. Okay, it's quite warm today here, so shouldn't take long for the water to evaporate, and we'll just let them naturally dry before we put any setting solutions on. Anyway, that is the tower element done. So it looks pretty good, doesn't it? I think I have my decal a bit high, so I'm just going to sort of in the middle of the hinges is where we want it. So I've just placed this decal around the tail, and it's actually longer than we need, so I'm changing my thoughts on this, and I'm actually going to join the decal halfway around the back. And now I know it's longer, I can overlap it. Right, let's see how that looks on the other side. Not quite lined up, but not far off. There we go, that doesn't look bad at all on the back. I'd rather have that join on the back. Yeah, that looks all right. I'm just going to squeegee it, and that should settle all right now. Yeah, that looks good. Happy with that. So this doesn't line up quite right, so I'm lining it up with the first window, and then we'll take it from there. Decals are on. They've been dried for about 6 hours now. They all had 1 dollop of microsol after they'd all been put on, and they haven't gone down too bad at all. We do have a little bit of work that we need to do to get it where we need, because there's so much raised rivet detail. There is quite a lot of bubbling. We've got some air trapped under there, so we've got a little bit of work to sit that down a little bit. In the windows, we need to trim them so there's no decal film in the opening of the windows. One or two of them might need a little touch up with the blue paint when we get to that, because you can see that they're not all perfectly aligned, and that's an issue with the decal. I think I couldn't, some of them are lined up and then they go out of line, so you can see at the start they're sort of perfectly aligned and then they go more and more out of line. The most difficult decal to put on was this one, and you can see we've got a little bit of work to sort that out because of it sitting around the curve. So there's a little bit of work to do there, and other than that, they're mainly done. I've got a little bit of the decal's just gone longer than the part. It's not happened on this one, but it has on that one, and I did worry that that might happen. So we need to sort that out. So probably slice a line in and then get them to overlap or something like that. So there's quite a lot of work to do to sort this out, and I need to do all of that before I can get any varnishes on. But they look quite good. There's no real issues with silvering, so it's just making sure everything's laying down as smoothly as possible. So overall, I'm not unhappy with the decals. So let's do that. I'm hoping that by cutting into the length of it, we can then soften it and push it round and get it to conform and not see the gap, not see the join, is my hope. We'll let the microsol just sink in for a sec, but I think that's doable. Otherwise, that decal is perfectly lovely and down. There's a little bit of silvering. I said there wasn't any silvering, but actually there's a little bit along the row of the rivets. So I'm just going to put a small pinhole in, and that's going to let the microsol get underneath it, and hopefully that'll be the end of that. Right, well, I'm going to carry on pricking any air bubbles and putting microsol down and hoping that we can get the bubbles to settle. And I'll get back to you. Now you can see what I'm doing once all these decals are done. My decals are down as I want them, and I'm now sort of happy with how they're lying in the main. Not perfect, particularly around the back here. Not perfect, but they're as good as I'm going to get them. So next thing I want to do is seal all of this before we do any more building. We're going to use satin varnish to do that. I'm using this polyurethane varnish from Vallejo. When you airbrush this, it needs a couple of coats. You can airbrush it straight from the bottle, as long as you're using a 0.4 needle, and you mess around with your pressure to get your pressure right. This goes down without any thinning. I've never actually brush painted with it before, but I want to brush paint this and keep it in keeping with what we're trying to do, which is do it in period. So I don't know whether I'm going to need 2 coats or not, but I suspect we might only need 1. Depends on how satin it ends up when brush painted. It's a little warm today, so I'm doing this early in the morning while the days that it's coolest. So let's see how we get on. See, that's going down really quite well. Probably going to give it 2 coats. You might get away without it because you're putting blue and white on top of it, which will make it more solid. But I think I'll probably give it 2 coats nonetheless. Right, I've just given it the second coat of the grey, the 64 that we're using. Just want to show you what I've done. On the surfaces that will glue, I've also painted them grey. Now, some of you might think, well, you've put paint in the way of where you're going to glue, and you're absolutely right, I have. But we're going to be using like a clear setting PVA glue to mount this on. So it's just a glue that's going to hold things in place. It's not going to melt into the plastic. It's not a strong glue in any way. So it really doesn't matter. But what painting that surface means, the surface that you would normally glue, that flat end there, what it means is it stops the light reflecting into the glass components, and it just gives it a more glazed look than if you didn't. It just reduces some of the light travel out of it. So I generally will paint on clear parts the mating surfaces as well. Now, some people will do it in black and will always do it in black. I tend to use the colour I'm painting. I'm sure doing it in black is probably a better way, but it's just not something I've ever done. But there you go, that is first coat's done. We can see there's a bit of clean up to do, and we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, I'm going to just clean this up now before we do anything more. Now, I'm sure most of you will know this technique, but just in case I will show you. So let me find a bit that's a little bit rough. There we go, that's easy to see. So that bit there where it's come out, I'm doing this looking at the camera, so hopefully this will work. So you can see I've just got a cocktail stick, and what we're going to do is just lightly take the paint back by rubbing it to the raised edge of what should be the metalwork. So I'm not pressing because we don't want to scratch the plastic. You can scratch the plastic even though it's harder than the cocktail stick tip, but that just allows us to neaten up any paint that's gone over where we want it. Oh, it's surprisingly tricky to do this on camera. Can't get the camera to focus particularly well, which doesn't help. But that's the basic idea. Now you won't be able to do that particularly well with enamels. It is doable, but you need to do it while the enamel paint is not fully dry. But it's certainly easy to do with acrylics. Okay. My first coat of satin clear coat has dried, and everything is now keyed in together. The decals have come out really well. They look painted on. Everything's doing what I'd like it to do. So it's even tidied up the door a little bit, which was looking a little bit ugly with the shim that I'd put in, but now looks a lot better. But it's not got the level of shine that I'd like, so we're going to give it a second coat of satin, and hopefully building up that layer will just give us a slightly greater shine, which is what I'm looking for, and then we can build up the cockpit. So I'm going to go away and do a second coat, and then we can have a look at painting the blue into our cockpit here. Right, propellers. I've painted the blades in gloss black, and that's because there is a little section on the forward edge of each blade. It's a bit less than half the length of the blade that is gloss black. The rest of it is like a polished stainless steel. So what I want to do is just mask off these little strips. So I've just put a little strip of masking tape on. This is, I think it's a millimetre wide. It's one of the Humbrol masking tapes. So what it needs to do is start against the spinner. Okay, just make sure they're nicely pressed down. Right, okay. So I will do the other one off camera, and then we'll have a look at yellow tips. Right, although I am trying my best to keep to Humbrol colours, there are some colours they simply don't have, and even with mixing you'd struggle to make. And one of them is the pale burnt metal that I need for the exhausts on the engine nacelles. I'm also going to use a pre-mixed tyre black. Obviously you can mix your own tyre black. It's a dark grey with a touch of black and a touch of green, and that gets you to tyre black. You have to mess around to do it, but when you can buy it, why would you? So there's a couple of colours that are going out of the Humbrol, and also some of the aluminiums and stuff like that where I want a slightly brighter colour in the chrome. Otherwise we've pretty much stayed to what we planned to do. The blue on the canopy has come up really well. Being careful because that white is still drying. So I'm pleased with that. That's come out well for hand brushing. You can see some of the grey paint from underneath, but when we tidy that up, that'll all disappear and it should look smashing. So my next job is to get in and paint these, which are the exhausts. So we're going to do that in the pale burnt metal. Having had a look at the few colour pictures that you can, it seems to be quite pale, so I think that'll work quite well. So I'm going to crack on with that next. To try and fit this cockpit in. We certainly managed to get it to fit before when we were test fitting. I can't remember quite how I went about it. Like that, I'm guessing. So that is in. That looks all right, doesn't it? And I just want to check that the canopy goes over it. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up next and get all the little grey paint off. Right, looking at painting the propellers next, and these look quite glossy and shiny compared to the rest of the silver on the aircraft. So I'm going to go with this MIG steel, which I've used on the Queen Mary 2 stainless steel propellers, and it comes out quite nice and shiny. So I think that will look about right. So again, we're going to move away from Humbrol because it sort of needs must really. same colour for the shafts on these rotor blades. The rotor blades were steel, but when you look at it, these almost look chrome plated. They are that shiny. So we can paint right up to the start of the blade there in this stainless steel colour. Okay, cockpit, the canopy, the clear parts. I've still got to paint the black on the inside of the top, but before I do that, I want to give the inside a clear gloss varnish. I will be giving the outside a gloss varnish as well, but I'm likely to not do that until I've installed it, and then we can carefully paint in between. And then we're going to have to satin varnish these paints to key it in with everything. So there's quite a bit of delicate work to be done, but on the inside we can just slap it on a little bit. So I use the Humbrol clear gloss varnish for this, and it should make this look a bit clearer and a bit more glass-like is the idea. Right, the end of this is in sight, definitely. So just wanted to talk you through one or two things that we've done. I've used the Vallejo 77707 Chrome to do the wheel hubs, and they've come up looking okay. So the wheels are now done. So just as a reminder, we painted them in Vallejo tyre black all over, then gave them a matte varnish, and then we've just painted the hubs. So they're ready to go on. On the actual main body, that has just been put on. There's no glue or anything involved. It's just been put on in place because it's that tight. Doesn't need any glue. So that is now added on. I have taken Tamiya black panel line and used that to darken these two little areas here in the engine, and also in this little rectangle in the wings. So just darkens that up, and that looks better, I think. On the actual rotor blades themselves, these are still in progress, but we've used the MIG steel for the shafts. They've had one coat. They need at least one more, possibly two more, and then on the little turbojets on the end, we've also done the chrome paint on the tip, but we've also masked off, it's easy to see on this one actually, masked off the centre bit that we painted satin Humbrol 85, satin black, and then we'll do the back end of this in the Humbrol Silver 11, which is what we've used on the main body, which will do that and do that back end, and then that should look about right. So we'll be unmasking that next job. If I'm happy with the chrome, which we'll have a look at with my magnifying glasses on in a mo. So let's see, what else have we done? Right, canopy, that is now finished as a part in its own right, although I do have something to add to it. So we painted that in the same grey, the Humbrol 64, and then we have painted over the top of it in the gloss Humbrol 14, and that matches really nicely. Then we've used the same Humbrol white, was it 34, on the top. Everything's been then given a gloss clear coat, and then I've painted in the black. It doesn't matter what black you use, but that looks right. I actually used Tamiya's flat black because I'm just trying to use all the Tamiya stuff wherever I can. So the next job on that, it will be to add the satin to the metalwork, which we'll probably do before we glue it in place, I would think. I have had a go at the spinner, which hasn't come out so well, so I need to revisit that. The top of it is black, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint over all of that in the same silver as that, and then we'll put the black top on separately. So I'm going to give that a little gentle sand down, and we'll start again on that because I'm not happy with it. Propellers are in progress, and then we've just got the landing gear doors to paint up, and then we're pretty much there. So yeah, nearly over the line. Okay, I'm gonna glue the wheels on next task. If you remember, we sanded a flat on them, so I've just organised them so the flats are facing upwards. And what we'll do is we'll put some glue on that's a bit more slow drying, put the wheels in place, and then we'll flip her over and put her down, and then make any adjustments so that the flats are all flat on the ground, and then we can just leave that to dry then. So I'm going to use my contactor glue because it's a nice slow drying glue, and if we put just a little bit on, that'll be plenty. Okay. Okay, I think we can now flop that over, and what's reassuring is all 6 of them are touching the ground because the weight that we've put in is sufficient, and we've got the canopy to put on, which adds a little bit of weight, so I'm happy with that. We managed to get that right. Okay. So that needs to dry a little minute, so we'll put that to one side, and then I think the next job is to get some more paint on the rotor blades. Right, there are some details that are missing from the Rotodyne. And one of the prominent ones is a little glazed area at the front here, which has a little silver light in it. And what I want to do is try and emulate that, and I'm going to try and just draw it on with a paint pen. So that is what we're going to have a go at doing next. So probably a job for the hand rest, I would think. Let's see how we get on. It's risky because if I mess this up, trying to overpaint it in white is going to take forever. Actually, I should put my magnifying glasses on. Doing it in my reading glasses is a hiding to nothing. Right, there we go. Okay, that's our window in. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to put a little silver dot in there to emulate that. Phew, that wasn't so bad. Job's a good one. Right, time to add the canopy. And to do that, I'm going to use this GS Hypo Cement. The advantage of this glue is it's non-gassing, so it's not going to cause us any issue with frosting, even though it's going onto painted surfaces in the main. It dries completely clear, and it has a nice little needle applicator. So it's a lovely glue to work with from that perspective. Downside, there's always some downside, isn't there? It can be a bit stringy, so you have to be a little bit careful. So let's crack on with that. Trick is to get the needle back in there as quickly as possible, and then keep it upright as it dries. There we go. That is on. Brilliant. Now, still got a bit of varnishing to do to finish that, and then we've got something that sticks out of the front that I'm going to have to scratch build, but we are looking like a Rotodyne now. Right, so if we're careful, we should be able to glue the spinner on the top, keep this in place, and be able to move this, although it's quite a tight fit. Okay, just got a little bit of black to do on the top, and I might do that with a paint pen, possibly. It's now too big for the camera, isn't it? Let's see if we can zoom out a bit. There we go. Still got more to do though. Right, let's have a go at glazing these windows. We've done a test, so we know it should work. So I'm using glue and glaze, and I've got the fine applicator on, but I've also got cocktail stick to hand, just in case we need to help it along. So I'm just going around the outside first, just doing that in a controlled way so that I know we're keeping a neat job. And then we're going to add a bit more. There we go. Now I can see I've got a little bubble in there at the top. I'm just going to deal with that. There we go. Just move the bubble to the top and then it sort of disappears. I'm at the point of just doing the finishing touches now, and one of the things that's missing from the kit is this piece that comes out of the nose. It's quite a prominent piece as well, and it's multicolours. We've got silver and we've got red on there. So what I've done is I've just drawn it out as best I can, and now I'm going to try and cut this out of this plastic card. You can see it's not very thick, and just see if we can emulate that by cutting out of the card. If not, then what we'll do is we'll use a slightly thicker card and cut just this piece out, and then maybe with a bit of thin wire add these two little bits that stick out. But if we can get it all out of the plastic card, that's my preference, but I don't know if I can do it. All we can do is try. So I'm going to start with this end here. Okay. Just going to attempt to thin those bits down a little bit, but essentially that is okay. Well, we're just at the point of finishing touches now on the Rotodyne. I'm using metal varnish from Vallejo for the propeller blades, which have a nice glossy look when you look at them on the real thing. We've painted in the silver and tipped them in yellow, and then we'll have to do a satin varnish just to take the shine off the spinners a little bit, which shouldn't be quite as shiny as they are, but that was a gloss paint that I was using. So let's get this done. Now I found when I did a little bit of experimenting with the metal varnish that if you want a high gloss finish, 2 coats works really well. It dries fairly quickly, so by the time we've done the second one, we'll be almost ready to come back and do a second coat. Almost. So as always, I'm going to test fit first. Okay, well, we don't want it touching the wheels, so we'll leave it just slightly back a little bit. Right, my final part to be glued on is my little scratch built thing. I've not finished painting it yet. We're going to use some CA and just glue it to the painted part of the nose there. And hopefully we should be alright without any issues of glass frosting or anything like that. I don't think that another type of glue is going to be strong enough. I just want to check the length. We don't want to overdo it. I think that's a little long, so I'm just going to shorten it a little bit. And then hopefully it'll grab fairly quickly and all will be good. Okay. Right, that is on. And I think that looks straight. Okay, that's all our components on. I've still got a little bit of painting to do, and then we've got some final varnishing to do, but we are nearly there. Right, we have these prop lengths to paint up. I'm using Humbrol 191, which is chrome silver for this. I wanted it to be a different look and feel to the propellers. It's quite a shiny silver on the actual aircraft, so I'm not sure that I've used this before. Bought it some while ago, so I'm interested to see how it goes down and how it performs against the number 11 silver. Now obviously the number 11 silver we're going to give a satin varnish, and we will give the chrome a gold varnish. But immediately I would say it's not got the sort of shine that we're able to get from other paints. That's the MIG steel there. you can't see this quite as clearly, so I'm going to switch you off. I'll see you again in a minute. Don't want to forget this little black point on the top of the spinner here. So I'm trying to do it with a Posca pen.